About a month ago, I moved into a house near the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. It's very secluded. Everything was great up until about a week ago when strange things started happening. Not like paranormal, just strange. So I knew moving in that I would have about 1 acre to myself, which is nice. The acre itself is just about all thick, dense woods. Towards the back, you can't even go any deeper because the land is too rigid and the trees block a clear path of sight into anything. Now, I live alone in this tiny house at the moment. My brother and his dog are moving in a couple of weeks. The house is pretty small and it has a basement with a sliding door to the backyard, which has a little tiny picket fence that could be knocked down completely if someone was just to, let's say, as much blow on it. I decided I'd start fixing it up for my brother's dog until he becomes well trained enough to know when to come back home and stuff. This is when the first creepy thing happened. I left to go to Lowe's to just buy some basic wood for a fence, just enough to make sure the dog couldn't leap over it if he tried. As I was coming back home, I noticed a man on my doorstep, looking inside my house through the side window. Even though any person could have heard me pulling into my driveway, he didn't flinch at all, even when I slammed the car door shut. Eventually, at this point, I kind of uneasily said, "Can I help you?" To which the man replied, "I'm just your neighbor and I wanted to say hello." I went out of my way to put the wood I was carrying in my hand down on the ground and went to shake his hand and he didn't even move again. He just stared at my hand. After this very weird encounter, I was more of just done with him, so I said that I was very busy because I was fixing my fence and that it was nice to meet him. He stayed at the front of my house for about another 2 minutes watching me put all of my wood inside the living room of my house, looking into and around my house in the process. Creeped out at this point, I just closed the door on his face and went on with my business. About 2 days later into fixing my fence, another woman, this one looking nicer and having put a little appearance into her look, greeted me kindly and told me all about herself. Now, I'll call her Mrs. H. Mrs. H was just explaining how people don't normally move around here, and I was the first in about 11 years. She went on to explain the rest of my neighbors whom I knew were around and that most of them like to stay to themselves. After a pleasant talk with Mrs. H, I asked her about the man from 2 days ago. Now this guy was about 6 foot, old but not too old, probably mid-50s, brown eyes, in decent shape and has gray hair. Mrs. H went on to explain that the person who lived here before me was a widow and her teenage daughter, who she homeschooled, had left because this perv started to stalk her daughter. More bullshit was said and she eventually left and that was that. Last night though, I heard a tapping on my window at exactly 2:37 a.m. I know this because I looked at my clock. Now, my window is at a good 4 feet from the actual ground below it and I figured it was just a bird or something, so I went to bed. Not less than 2 minutes after silence, the tapping became banging. Immediately, I ran to the closet and grabbed my hunting .22 and hid behind my bed. Peeking over, I saw a figure looking into it. After being scared shitless for 30 seconds, the familiar voice of that perv shouted, "I need your help." Not knowing what to do, I threw my curtain open and the only thing between his forehead and my .22 was the half-an-inch thick glass in my window. He then didn't say a word. Not a "don't shoot," not a "I still need help," nothing. He then pointed behind him to the fence I was building. I then ran outside to see what he wanted, and this time with the gun on him I said, "What's wrong?" And he said nothing, but pointed to my fence again. I looked, and this time I saw the fence had seemed to be run over by a car, with mud tracks stopping and then being reversed in the grass. I looked at the 50-something-year-old's car, whom of which his tires were dirty and had tracks coming from my backyard. Pissed at what I saw, I yelled at him, "What the fuck?" and then put my finger on the trigger of the .22, to which he finally replied, "Your fence." He then got back in his car and left, all while I still had the .22 pointed at him. It is currently 3 p.m. on March 2nd, and I've scrapped the entire fence idea out of sheer exhaustion and fear. This is all really happened and is currently happening, and I'll keep you guys updated with the situation. I haven't contacted the police because I don't know if he meant to run into my fence or not. But either way, I have no idea why he was in my driveway, let alone on my property. Preface, I've been lurking around here before, but since none of my friends/family, myself previously included, think seriously of events like this, I chose to make a new account to post this. Emphasis on myself previously included. I don't want to make this too long, but I also want to try to be as descriptive as possible to increase the odds of figuring out what the hell just happened. I live in North Carolina, Durham specifically. My family lives in a standard 2-story house in the middle of a run-of-the-mill neighborhood. On the night of question, about 2 nights ago, my family was going to visit a relative who had given birth recently in Greensboro, so I had the house to myself. I was getting home at around 8 to 9 and decided to bring my dog in. She stays outside in the kennel for the day until we bring her in for the night. Our house has a garage attached to the left of it, and the garage has a back door that leads into the backyard. Her kennel is just to your right as you exit the door, with a 4 to 5 feet clearance in between it and the garage. She had recently been taken to the vet for her distressed behavior, which is why I had to stay home to be with her. The evening went fine. I watched a movie to pass the time. I then decided to take her out to use the bathroom before being put up for the night, around 12 to 1. This is where I lost my shit. I took her out the back garage door with her long leash. She usually does her business in that little clearing between the kennel and the garage, so I let her walk down through it. Our garage has a single light on the back wall, so I can see her somewhat while she does it. She's facing me when suddenly her backside lifts almost 1 or 2 feet in the air. Paranormal or not, I fucking screamed at this. I assumed some wild dog or something had tried to drag her. She runs back to me and I hear rustling among the rocks, and this figure stops right as it enters visible view in the light. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was tall. I'm 6'2" and I had to look slightly up to see where I thought its head was. It was pale but not white or gray, just normal pale flesh color. It was lanky, not really anorexic or anything, but definitely disproportionate. It looked at me for a good 1 to 2 seconds before it backtracked in the quickest manner I could never replicate. As soon as it went in, I booked it back inside. I was torn about calling the police if neighbors who had heard my scream hadn't. Behold, almost half an hour later, the police arrive in my driveway. I've been contemplating whether it was some creature or some NBA-bound nude meth head. Once again, I don't count myself as a believer in the Bigfoot or Mothman, but I really don't know what the fuck happened. I'm most definitely not taking the dog out alone anytime soon. This was when I was 16 or 17 years old. At the time, I lived in a very small town of about 500 people, but I'd recently moved there from a city of 2,000 people. The town was only about an hour and a half away, so my mom did not mind if I went to visit her alone. I also had my license since I was 15, and this is in the middle of nowhere, so my mom wasn't worried. I was going back to visit my friend, Lily, and spend the weekend with her. She was 18 years old and lived with her older boyfriend as they had a child together while she was still in high school. Lily was my best friend forever and my partner in crime, so we have tons of crazy stories, but this one is a little too crazy. Living in a small town of 2,000 people, there wasn't much to do. There was no mall and not much to do for entertainment. We were walking around Walmart just trying to pass the time when we see 2 attractive guys. They were definitely a little older than us, probably 21 and 25 years old. We were all of the same ethnicity. The town contained mostly Caucasian people, but we were the few people of color. We automatically noticed them, and they start to approach us. There was 2 guys named Steven and Andre. Steven was clearly into Lily. He was flirting rather aggressively and inviting us to a party later that night. I was not attracted at all to Andre as he was 10 years older than me, but agreed to go because my friend wanted to get out of the house and have some fun. We were a little sketched out, to be honest, to go to a party with some people we did not know, but we figured with the both of us together we would probably be okay. That was not such a smart decision. So it's around 9 p.m. We tell Lily's boyfriend that we're just going to the movies and to get food. We instead meet them in the Walmart parking lot and follow them in our car to the place where the party is at. Once we arrived at the apartment, Andre told me that he actually knew me through his roommate. Remember, this is a small town and we are the only few people of color. His roommate turned out to be my friend that I had not spoken to in like 4 years. Before walking into the party, he even called her on the phone. She shouted that she was at a concert and couldn't talk, but she would call me later to catch up. She was sorry she was missing the party. We go into the apartment where the party is supposed to be at, and when we walk in, there's only a couch and a dining room table, but no other furniture. I ask Steven why there's nobody here and no furniture. He says it's a small party and that they worked at the oil field in town and were only here for 6 months, so they didn't want to spend a lot of money on furniture. Lots of people come to the town to work there as it's good money, so I wasn't that surprised, and that makes sense why we didn't recognize them. Another guy comes out from one of the 2 bedrooms, and I could see that there was no furniture in there either, other than mattresses on the floor. Steven introduced this guy as his brother. Steven starts to make drinks, and I know you're not supposed to take drinks from strangers, so I watch him as he poured my drink. Lily then asked me to go on the balcony so she can smoke a cigarette. When we go on the balcony, she tells me that she thinks he made her drink too strong, and since she's the only one driving, she wants to switch drinks. I agree, although being in high school I didn't really have that much experience drinking. I take 2 or 3 sips and it was way too strong. I drink a little more but set it down once we get inside. Steven pulls Lily over to dance. I sit down on the couch and Lily says you gotta get up and dance with me. I decline as I'm starting to feel sketched out about everything going on. We were at a party with some guys that we met at Walmart who are older than us, who made my friends drink really strong and they barely have any furniture. Suddenly, Lily pulls me up off the couch and starts to get me to dance as I could tell she didn't want to dance with Steven. I look at the laptop where the music is coming from and Steven's brother is holding it in his hand. He has it faced outward and I can see the camera light on the laptop is on. I tell Lily I need to go to the bathroom, and as soon as we get in I lock the door because I start to feel really sick. I'm talking extremely dizzy and nauseous. I had drank before and didn't feel that bad that quickly, and I had barely drank that much of the drink. I tell Lily I'm feeling extremely sick and I'm feeling really weirded out. She says she's ready to go too because they are weird. And after that, I remember nothing. I don't remember how we left, how I got in the car, or what happened after we got in the car. When I woke up, my head was on the toilet seat at her apartment. I'm a major germ freak and I would never have my face touching a toilet seat, but I had thrown up all over. My friend said I couldn't walk and she had to get her boyfriend to carry me into the house. She said she had to tell him what happened because there was no explaining how I got that sick. She was so scared that I wasn't waking up that she called my aunt who lived in town to come pick me up. She told her I had food poisoning. On the way home to my aunt's house, I started freaking out and having trouble breathing. My aunt thought I was having an allergic reaction to what I ate. I had to take a puff of her inhaler in order for me to convince her not to take me to the hospital. After we got to her house, I did not wake up until 5 p.m. the next day. The next day I'm talking to Lily and we get to thinking about what could have happened. We realized that Steven must have drugged Lily's drink, and when we switched drinks, I'm the only one who got drugged. That was about 10 years ago, and I have never gotten that sick from drinking ever again in my life, and I went to college. I know I was not drunk, but I didn't even drink half of the drink. Andre actually ended up messaging Lily on Facebook months later, but we never saw them again.